Hey guys, so today I'm here with the Rough Country Dual Performance 2.2 steering stabilizer, fitting all 2007 to 2018 JK Wranglers with 2 inches of lift or more. So if you've noticed a lack in smoothness in your ride and you're getting a little bit of feedback through your steering wheel and your steering linkage, it may be due to a worn out, leaking, bent, or even just overall damaged steering stabilizer. So that makes it a perfect time to replace it, and this option by Rough Country is going to do a good job at getting rid of some of that feedback. So when you're choosing a steering stabilizer, it really is essential to understand how it operates and knowing what it will do as well as what it will not do. So a steering stabilizer is essentially going to get rid of some of that feedback that you feel in the wheel, any of that jolting feeling once you hit a bump, but it is not going to get rid of any wobble, it's not going to get rid of death wobble, and it's definitely not going to get rid of bump steer. Now if you do have those issues, it is most likely a problem in your suspension geometry. However, if you don't have any of those issues and you're just looking for something to get rid of that jarring feeling once you're doing any high-speed stuff or you're hitting a lot of bumps, then a steering stabilizer like this is going to be a really good upgrade to take a look into. So this option by Rough Country is going to have 2 50/50 valve hydraulic dampeners on either side. It's going to have some beefy hardware, and it's going to do a really good job at lasting a long time, but also being a really good replacement for a damaged or worn out steering stabilizer. So this is going to get rid of any of that extra feedback that you feel in the wheel, especially for the Wrangler owners that have 2 inches of lift or more on their Wrangler. So not to mention, this is also perfect for somebody who really enjoys the look of a dual setup, considering that you really can't miss it once you see this on your Wrangler. Now this is going to be roughly $125, putting this right in the middle of the road as far as pricing goes. Now in comparison to some other choices, you usually have 3 different options once it comes to steering stabilizers. You have single steering stabilizers, or more accurately steering dampeners. You have dual stabilizers, and you also have adjustable stabilizers. So not only is this going to be in the middle with price, it's also going to be in the middle as far as the stabilizers go. So the more cost-effective choice is usually the single option. That's going to get the job done and be more or less a factory style replacement. However, this is going to have a couple more bells and whistles than a single option. So this is going to be perfect for somebody who's looking for that look of an aggressive looking dual steering stabilizer mounted up to their tie rod. And then on the other hand of that, you have those adjustable steering stabilizers, which are going to be pretty expensive, and that's really for somebody who's really looking to fine tune their steering. So like I said, this is going to be in the middle as far as price goes and as far as those extra bells and whistles. So in my personal opinion, if you're really looking to smoothen out your ride with an aggressive looking steering setup, then this is going to be a good option to take a look into again. So install is going to be a 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, and I will put it at the harder side of a 1 out of 3. You are going to need some basic hand tools to get the job done. So speaking of that install, let's jump into it now. The tools that I used for my install were a large pry bar, an electric impact, a pneumatic impact, a 19mm ratcheting wrench, an 18mm ratcheting wrench, 19mm open-ended wrench, 9/16 inch ratcheting wrench, 21, 19, 18, and 15mm deep socket, 13/16 inch deep socket, and a 9/16 inch deep socket, a 3/8 inch drive ratchet, and a hammer. So our first step to taking off our steering stabilizer is going to be to remove the 2 bolts that are holding it in, and then we can remove our clamp. I'm going to be using an 18mm ratcheting wrench in order to get those 2 bolts out. So once the flag nut's loose on the back, what we can do is take this bolt out. So as you can tell, our bolt is hitting our tie rod here. Now you may be able to turn the tie rod up or down and wiggle the bolt out. However, in our situation, it's not really working. So what I'm gonna do is pull this wheel off, drop the tie rod so we are able to take this bolt out, and then we can move on to the other 2 bolts on our tie rod. So I'm just taking a 13/16 inch socket. It will depend on your lug nuts, and then also an extension to clear our wheel. So I'm only going to drop this side of our tie rod just so we can clear this bolt here. Now I'm going to use a 21mm socket in my impact wrench. Hopefully that will zip it off without turning the ball joint. Now if you are using hand tools, you may have to use an Allen key to keep the ball joint still, but because I have an impact, it might zip it off a little bit quicker. After the nut is flush with that stud, what I'm going to do is take a hammer and tap it out. So now we can just unthread that nut, drop it down, and we'll be able to take out our bolt. We can put that to the side, but what we can do is just put our tie rod back into place. All right, now that it's reconnected, what we can do is take out the other bolt as well as this clamp. So our next step is to remove the nut on the back of our steering stabilizer. I'm going to use that same 18mm ratcheting wrench. All right, so we'll be able to slide our stabilizer off, and then we just have to remove this clamp, so we're going to need a 15mm socket. So now I'm going to loosen up the clamp with a 15mm socket. Right, and we'll be able to slide this out. So what I'm going to do is actually take that bolt off. So in order to get the clamp off of the tie rod, what I did was grab 2 pry bars and pried in between here, and then that kind of loosened up the clamp and we were able to hit it off with a hammer. So now that that is off, what we can do is go ahead and mount up our new system. So before we go ahead and mount up our new rough country system, I did want to tell you guys a little bit about it, especially in comparison to your factory setup. Now right off the bat, they are going to be very similar. So all a steering dampener is a 50-50 valved hydraulic shock or a hydraulic dampener. So that's what you're getting out of this rough country option. The only big difference is the fact that you're getting 2, and those are both going to mount up to the top of the tie rod instead of just getting 1 with your factory setup. Now this is going to be an upgrade in the fact that if you have a leaking or damaged or worn out steering stabilizer from the factory, this is going to be brand new and ensure that you're not going to get any of that feedback through your steering wheel. Now this is going to come with some heavy duty bracketry to make sure that it's going to last a very long time, and the actual dampeners themselves are going to be pretty heavy duty. So like I said, the N3 is going to be 50-50 valves, it's going to be a hydraulic dampener, but it is going to be a little bit beefier than our stock setup. This is going to have a 9/16 inch rod, and it's also going to have a durable shock body on it, and overall this system is going to look a lot nicer mounted up to the top of your tie rod than your factory one is. Obviously this isn't as aesthetically pleasing as a dual stabilizer is going to be, so enough about these 2 on the table. Let's go ahead and bolt up our new system. So what we can do first is mount up our center bracket. Now you want to make sure that this tab that's offset is facing our differential. Put this over, grab our larger U-bolts and put that around the axle. Grab our flange nuts, thread those on just so it stays in place. Do the same thing for the other side. So once we have our U-bolt in place, what we can do is thread on the same bolts, and we're going to leave everything loose so that we can come back to it. Want to make sure that everything's fitting up first. So now we can install our smaller brackets on the outside of our tie rod. Now we will need to install one of our bolts first that's going to hold part of our stabilizer. And also the tab, the offset tab, is going to face the inside towards the differential. Then we can take our smaller U-bolts, put them around our tie rod, thread on the same flange nuts, and repeat that on the other side for our smaller bracket. So what I'm going to do next is install our cover. This is going to attach to the bottom of our center bracket, but while we put this bolt up through, we need to simultaneously hold the shock or the dampener in place, making sure that the fixed end of the shock, not the rod end of the shock, is in the middle. So I am going to line this up. We can grab our bolt, and then while we're here, we can attach our flat washer on the top as well as our nut. All right, so what we're gonna do next is attach the other end of our dampener onto our smaller bracket at the ends of our tie rods. We wanna make sure that this is sitting on the end of the collar for our tie rod. So you might have to push it back a little. Now for right now, I'm not gonna tighten anything down. I'm just gonna attach that flat washer and the nut. We can do the same thing on the other side, and then we can go back and tighten everything down. So what I'm going to do first is tighten down the end of our dampener in place on our small bracket. I'm going to use a 19mm deep socket as well as a 19mm wrench to keep the bolt still. We can put our bracket back into place if it's moved. We can grab a 9/16 inch socket and go ahead and tighten these down. Now you want to make sure that you're tightening up these U-bolts pretty evenly. And we can do the same thing for our other small bracket. Now you want to make sure that this bracket is seating up against this collar here. If you have to pull on the shock, you might have to do that. And then we can tighten these down with that 9/16 inch socket. So what I'm going to do now is tighten up our center bracket here. Now you want to make sure that you're holding it in place and tightening down the U-bolts evenly. And then we can go ahead and tighten up our shocks after we're finished with that. So I'm going to take the same 9/16 inch socket and tighten those down. So now we can tighten down our shock bolts, or our dampener bolts on the inside near this bracket. Now the center bracket or the cover plate here is angled back, so I can't fit a socket in here, and our tie rod is down at the bottom. So I'm gonna have to use a ratcheting 19mm wrench and an open-ended 19mm wrench. Last but not least, we can add our stickers onto our shocks. So that's going to wrap it up for my review and install. Make sure you like and subscribe, and for more videos and products like this, always keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.